Hello and welcome to episode 11 of the Crash and Ride podcast. I'm Patrick Ferguson. I'm your host. Today's guest is Susie Ulrey. She's guitar player and singer-songwriter of the Tampa band Pohgoh. She's also a survivor of multiple sclerosis. We talk in our interview about living with MS and continuing to thrive and create art. Susie talks really honestly about the emotional and physical toll of multiple sclerosis, and I'm really grateful she was willing to open up to me in this interview like this. Her band Pohgoh recently opened for Jawbreaker, and they continue to make records and tour in the U.S., and also later this year, as we announced in this interview, she's going to Japan to play some shows with Pohgoh. So be on the lookout for Pohgoh dates in your area. I interviewed Susie at her home after Pinky Doodle Poodle did a surprise show at Keith Ulrey, that's Susie's husband, at his record store Microgroove for Record Store Day in Tampa. Speaking of Pinky Doodle Poodle, we got some dates coming up. I want to announce those. Pinky Doodle Poodle, for those of you who don't know, is a high-energy rock band from Tokyo, Japan. They moved here without a drummer. Now I'm their drummer, and we do a lot of shows in the U.S. We played recently in the Northeast. We did shows in Buffalo and Pittsburgh and Brooklyn, and came back down to do Washington, D.C. and Spartanburg, South Carolina. One reviewer on that tour described Pinky Doodle Poodle as seeing the Bad Brains rip through a cover set of Cream songs, which I thought was pretty great. Come see us if we play in your town. Here's some dates. We're playing May 25th at Smith's Old Bar, May 31st at the Georgia Theater Rooftop here in Athens, Georgia, June 1st at the 529 in Atlanta, Georgia. We have a residency series coming up at Snug Harbor in Charlotte, North Carolina. The first of those shows is June 5th. I won't be playing drums for that show. Ian Pasquini from the great noise rock band Jesus Crust will be playing drums on that show. We're playing June 6th at the Borough Bar and Grill in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and June 7th at the Melody Inn in Indianapolis, Indiana. Man, I love Indianapolis. I mean, I have family there, but also there's just so many great places to eat and hang out. There's still drive-ins there. Cool town. Can't wait to see you at that show if you're in Indy. Our last episode, episode 10, our interview with Evan Rowe is probably the heaviest interview I've done on this show in a collection of pretty heavy interviews, and I got a lot of positive feedback on it. I passed all of that on to Evan. I thought he was super brave and super open and super honest about what he's struggled with. And he talked about how ketamine is the ketamine infusion therapy done IV is saving his life. That's keeping the thoughts of self-harm and negative thoughts at bay. And one of our listeners contacted me, wrote me an email about his experience with ketamine, and I'm going to do something I haven't done before, which is read directly from his message to me. He said, I've not done any of the infusion therapy. My doctor prescribed a nasal spray that was compounded by a local pharmacy. It's simply ketamine mixed with a solution that is applied nasally. I don't have to go to an infusion center or wait for esketamine to hit the market, and neither does anyone else. I do it at home twice weekly, and it costs $70 a month. He told me that intravenous application has 100% absorption, and nasally it's 50%, but obviously this nasal spray is ridiculously cheaper with way less hassle and is effective. He explained to me in layman's terms that they were able to isolate one of the 4 parts of ketamine, thereby allowing them to patent it as esketamine using the 3 remaining parts. He told me ketamine has been around a long time, has been proven safe, and is dirt cheap. As discussed, infusion is very expensive, and I understand that esketamine will be too. If you know of anyone that is therapy resistant, they've tried multiple antidepressants and or therapy to little or no avail, advise them to discuss this with their doctor. This is available, is effective for a lot of people, and doesn't have to cost a fortune. So if that's the end of his message. If you're struggling with this and you're talking to your doctor about esketamine or the IV ketamine, and they're talking about $450 per dose, then, I mean, ask if the doctor can recommend a compounding pharmacy and have him check into this nasal spray, because it seems like it might be a cheaper alternative to having to do these really expensive IV transfusions. It's really exciting to think that we might be making a difference in people's lives. That's the whole reason we do this. And please spread the word, share on social media, let people know that we're having important quality discussions here, and maybe we can help some people. In other news, we've set up the coffee subscription level on our Patreon page, patreon.com/crashandride. For $35 a month, you can support the show, and I'll send you a can of Crash and Ride. Personally, I will drive it to the post office and put it in the mail myself. I had hoped it would be $30, but after computing packaging costs and shipping costs for us to get a little bit of money off the top of that for the show, it was $35. My apologies. But also spread the word on that. And I'll send you a can of Crash and Ride Espresso blended especially by local roaster Jittery Joe's for our podcast. And here in my hand is our first official sponsor message. Crash and Ride is brought to you in part by Greer Amplification. Greer Amps builds the best boutique effects pedals available. If you're looking for an overdrive, boost, fuzz, compressor, or tremolo that is rugged, road-tested, and at home on stage, in the studio, or in your living room, Greer has a pedal for you. Nick and his staff strive to build the best products around with the best tone you've ever heard. They believe in their products and they stand behind them too, backing each one up with a lifetime warranty to the original owner. Each Greer Amps product is hand-built in Athens, Georgia, USA. Go to www.greeramps.com today or ask at your local music retailer. I've known Nick a long time, Nick Greer from Greer Amplification. I'm a huge fan of their pedals. I use their tremolo, the Arbuncle tremolo, and I have a Sucker Punch, which is their maximum overdrive pedal that's great for noise rock and heavy stuff. And man, go check it out. It's good stuff. And I just want to remind everybody that if you're struggling with thoughts of self-harm, if things are just too heavy for you right now, you can always call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. It's 24/7. It's free, and it's confidential. Give them a call. They have trained volunteers there to help you through your crisis and maybe direct you to some community resources where you can get some help. That's 1-800-273-8255. All right, let's jump into our interview with Susie Ulrey. Okay, I'm here with Susie Ulrey, guitar player and singer from the band Pohgoh, a long-time friend of mine, resident of Tampa, Florida. Hi, Susie.
Hi.
Thanks for agreeing to do this.
Thanks for having me.
So, Pohgoh is just put out a record for the first time in, was it 21 years?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that record's called?
Secret Club.
And you took 21 years off because you have struggled with?
MS. Well, yeah. I mean, that's part of it, but also, like this, I mean, it was all timing, essentially. Because, Keith and I have been...
Keith is your husband.
Keith is my husband, yes. Yeah. Sorry. We've been married since 2000, and I've known him since I was 16. So we're very entangled. Yeah.
Did you guys go to high school together?
No, he's 6 years older than me.
Okay.
I met him at Stone Lounge.
At Stone Lounge?
Yeah.
We were just discussing Stone Lounge before we turned the microphones on.
And what were we talking about? Pohgoh.
Yeah.
We've been doing stuff in between. Like we did a band with Mike called Rec Center, and we played South by Southwest. We put out a record, but when the band got back together, it was just everything kind of fell into place. Yeah. So it just worked out.
Yeah. So I guess I should, for the just to sort of contextualize where we're at. We're actually at Susie's house in Tampa. As I mentioned on the last few podcasts, I was down here to play some shows. And Susie had heard the podcast and offered to be a guest, so I'm really stoked about that. And our friend Mike is doing audio engineering on this because I don't have my rig with me. It's been very frustrating for me to have this incredible opportunity and not have any of my equipment. But Mike is doing an amazing job. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
So let's talk about early Pohgoh first of all, because I want people to understand sort of where you're coming from. There were many Pohgoh records before you stopped. Mm-hmm. So how many albums?
Just one.
Yeah.
There were a few 7-inches.
Right. Bandcamp is covered in Pohgoh releases.
Yeah. Well, there was a singer before me. She was in the band from 94 to 96. Mm-hmm. And she was the singer. Right. And then she quit, and they asked me to join, and I brought a second guitar in, so Matt could focus more on his stuff. And then we put out a record and a split 7-inch and another 7-inch in Germany. And then we were part of a comp. And that was pretty much it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you stopped in what year?
It was 97. Keith quit in the spring of 97.
So Keith quit?
Keith quit, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we want to get into that? Or
sure, it's not a... Yeah. He had just gone through a really bad breakup. We were young, like I was 19.
Oh, so you guys weren't seeing each other then?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
No, we didn't start seeing each other until December of No, we got engaged in December of 99. It was summer of 99 is when we started dating.
Okay.
But he had gone through a really bad breakup, and it was just, I don't know, it's just like a flip was switched, and he was just like, I'm done.
Yeah.
He quit. And we were going to sign a record deal the next day, and I'm not making this up. Like, it's legit.
Wow.
And
so who was the record deal with?
it was Deep Elm, actually.
Oh, so 5/8, the band that I play in, we had a deal with Deep Elm for a while. I think they're done though, right? Is there?
I don't know.
So the record that 5/8 put out on Deep Elm is The Good Nurse, which I am not actually on. It was part of the writing for that record, and then I quit the band. As you said, a switch was flipped, and I was done. And then came back to do a couple of shows in 2007, and I've been there since.
Yeah. I mean, he had a bit of a mental break. He went through some stuff, as happens when...
He's a sensitive guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've jumped into a whole lot of stuff really early, and I want to kind of start... I want to back up a little bit. So tell me a little bit about your early life.
Early life.
Yeah.
Born and raised in Tampa. Right.
And we're currently in Seminole Heights, and this is where your parents lived, right?
Mm-hmm. And I grew up in Carrollwood, which is west of here.
Right. When did they leave Seminole Heights?
They got married when they were 19.
Wow.
And they moved out of the neighborhood, but my grandparents stayed here.
Really?
Both sets of grandparents.
Seminole Heights went through a period there where it was kind of left behind by a lot of the city.
Yes, white flight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody left and went to the suburbs.
All the white people.
All the white people, yeah. But my great-grandmother worked in the cigar factory.
Really?
My great-grandfather worked in the shipyard, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I'm Sicilian, but they also grew up making like all of the Cuban food, so I got a little bit of everything.
What was their last name?
Monaco.
Okay.
Monaco, not Monaco. I realized after that.
When did you start playing music?
I started taking piano lessons when I was like 9. And I went through, and then I took clarinet lessons, I think, in junior high school. And then I always sang, always, just, it's part of how I communicate. My parents said that when I was a kid, like 4 or 5, they would go by my room and they would hear me like singing myself to sleep, like about the day.
Yeah.
And I would just talk about like I got in trouble or I hit my sister or whatever. And
you have a sister?
Yeah, one sister.
Just one? So your only sibling?
Yeah. She's 3 years older than me.
Yeah. Are you guys close?
We're getting there.
Yeah. It's funny how it happens later in life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're very different.
Yeah.
She, pledged a sorority and was very career driven, and I'm
not.
Complete opposite of that, so.
Yeah.
So, she's been through a divorce and trying to
reconnect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, there's an affection there, but, we're not close, so we need to be close.
Yeah.
So
your parents are still together?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they got married when they were 19. I said that already. Sorry.
Right.
And so 1970. So how long is that?
It's been 48 years since 1970.
Yeah.
So, wow, they're coming up on their 50th anniversary.
Yeah.
That's really amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a happy childhood?
I think so.
You sang yourself to sleep. That's really generally a good sign.
Yeah, I was raised Catholic. Went to mass every Sunday. Had dinner on the table every night. Was loved and cherished and told I was beautiful and.
That's big.
Yeah, and supported. When I was 16 and I wanted to start playing in bands, they were on board.
Yeah, when did you get your first guitar? We stopped at clarinet.
I got my first guitar when I was 14. I got an acoustic guitar.
Uh-huh. Do you still play piano?
No. I didn't really learn much. Gave up because it was hard. It
is hard, yeah.
And then with Rec Center, which is the band I was in with Mike, I was playing keyboards because I didn't have dexterity with my hands because I have multiple sclerosis.
So you already had symptoms at that point?
Well, no, that was like 2000. I'm jumping all over the place. Yeah. So, where were we? What were we talking about?
Guitar. 14. First band 16.
Yes.
And your folks supported you.
Yeah, 100%. And I met a good friend in junior high school, and we became best friends, and we started going to this rock school at a record store up the street.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
What was that record store called?
Paragon.
Uh-huh. Is it gone or is it still there?
No, it's not a record store. It's a music store. It's an equipment store. It's still there. They don't do the rock school anymore. But we would have individual like guitar lessons, and then we would have group lessons.
What was your first electric guitar? Do you remember?
Washburn Lion.
Yeah. That's a Strat copy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whammy bar or no whammy bar?
It had a whammy bar, but I never used it. I was intimidated by it. So yeah, we did that, and I don't even know where the motivation came from, and I was like, I think I could put something together, like a song together, right. And you learn some basic chords, and I had a melody, and then it just kind of fell out.
Tyranny credits Gem and the Holograms. Tyranny Tough from the Pauses.
Yeah.
Was that a part of your early life too?
I think Tyranny is a good bit younger than me.
I don't know how old Tyranny is. I spent 2 hours talking to her. I never even thought to ask how old she is.
I'm not sure. She's in her mid-30s, yeah. I'm 41.
Yeah.
I just loved singing. I wanted to be a pop star, the hairbrush in the mirror. And
right.
I had a friend whose dad made me some Beatles, like a mixtape of Beatles songs. Mm-hmm. And that was essentially how I learned how to harmonize, just
cool.
listening to those songs over and over again. And it was all early Beatles stuff.
Do you have a favorite Beatle?
Well, now it's George, but back in the day it was Paul.
Tell me about that evolution.
Well, I thought Paul was cute when I was a kid.
He's cute.
But they're all cute.
Yeah.
But I like George because he's the underdog. I appreciate
no kidding.
It. Yeah.
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 Huh.
So.
Ringo's my dude.
Yeah.
He's just so almost accidentally perfect.
Yeah.
I love that about Ringo Starr.
Yeah.
He's such an amazing drummer, and yet just very low key, but always right there. Mm-hmm. I love that about him. Mm-hmm. So you start your first band with your friend that was in rock school with you. Mm-hmm. Was it a duo or?
No, we had a drummer.
What was it called, that band?
Stitch. And we put out a 7-inch on New Granada Records.
Whoa!
Wait,
did Keith run New Granada then?
No. It was more of a co-op then.
Yeah.
It was essentially...
Keith Ulrey, Susie's husband,
yeah.
For those of you who don't know, runs a label called New Granada, and it does so much more than just put out records. 5/8 plays the New Granada Showcase at South by Southwest every year. New Granada promotes shows in Tampa, and we have played 24 shows for Keith?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is New Granada all Keith now? Or
it's us, yeah.
It's us.
Yeah.
Good.
We haven't really done a lot lately with the label.
You've done a lot, just not with the label.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, back in the day, it was just basically an imprint for us to hang our hats on,
Right.
So we were really excited. It was green vinyl. We recorded at someone's house, and we pressed 300 records.
Did you sell them all?
No.
I think.
No.
I think it's a fact of life in the vinyl resurgence. And before 5/8, it still has cassettes from our first few record deals in boxes. Cassettes are cool again, so now we're like, hey, Boy, I got a deal for you.
I know, yeah.
Because we've been hauling them every time somebody in the band moves. They find another 100 cassettes in a box, you know. But yeah, so you make 300 copies of a 7-inch. That band was called Stitch. And how long was that band together?
Year and a half, maybe. Not long.
Wow, you guys really got on the ball. A year and a half, and still you got a single out.
Well, yeah, but it was just local, and we were kids, you know. And
I don't know. I'm still pretty impressed. Pressing vinyl at that time was a non-trivial event.
It was expensive. I mean, I think it cost for us anyway. We had a little Sanrio Karopi, the frog Karopi lunchbox, and we kept all of our money in it. And when we saved up enough, we went and made a record. And
how old were you at this point? 17?
17, yeah.
I don't like to use the term adorable because taken out of context, something being patronizing or sexist, but that's kind of fucking adorable. 17-year-old band with a Sanrio lunchbox goes and presses that's really cool.
I wasn't trying, you know. I mean, it was I felt like it was a way for me to express myself because I'm not very good at doing that.
Good at expressing yourself?
Yeah.
Good at expressing your needs?
Or anything, really. Yeah. Even when we're at band practice, I have a really hard time articulating where I want a song to go. Just never been good at it.
You know, it's something I'm working on a lot with every band I'm in and bands I work with as an engineer and producer. That you should write every song all the way to the end, and you should be careful about how you phrase criticism of other people's ideas. That you should never say, all your songs X, or all your parts Y, or that song sounds like Z, because it's very destructive to the writing process, and you get out of practice of writing songs all the way. If you finish a song, whether you end up using it or not, it's like lifting weights or something. You get stronger at the process.
Yeah.
And everybody's always jacked for time. We practice 5/8 schedules, 2 practices a month, and cancels 1. You know, we don't get a lot of time to write.
Yeah.
Bunch of dads, you know. But I'm such a strong believer that the communication that happens in the practice space is really important. What would you say that was part of your childhood though? As a kid, did you have trouble articulating your needs? Were you quiet?
I was pretty shy. I was a fat kid.
Oh.
Yeah, I was fat. I was chubby. I was a Girl Scout for about 3 months, and they had to special order my uniform.
Wow.
From the plus size section. Yeah. So yeah, I got bullied, and
so that must have really strongly affected your sense of well-being.
Still, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you have a lot of sadness from that?
Not anymore. I just don't feel.
I mean, then.
Yeah.
It sounds like it'd be really hard.
I mean, but, my grandmother, eat something, you'll feel better.
Yeah.
So you celebrate to eat. You're sad to eat. You eat. That's what you do.
Italian thing.
Yeah.
Right. It works too.
So, yeah. So, I was a chubby teenager, and I was chubby really until about 10 years ago.
Was your sister?
No.
Oh boy.
No, hourglass.
Your older sister was not.
Gorgeous. Yeah. So I was awkward and chubby and a tomboy, and being in a band was a way for me to find a way to articulate myself when I couldn't do it in real life,
Yeah. Were you introverted?
Yeah, I used to blush really bad.
Oh.
Yeah. Even meeting new people. Keith and I went to see a new doctor, a new neurologist for me, a year after I'd been diagnosed, and I thought he was cute, and he came in the door, and I, blushed.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I used to not be able to turn it off. I would just...
So you can turn it off now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just happened over time. I don't know. Maybe I just don't give a shit anymore. I think that's what happens when you get older. You stop giving a shit.
It seems to be a recurring theme with these musicians that I talk to, is at some point you stop letting other people's perceptions dictate how you feel about yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you're 17. you put out your first record. My mind is still blown by that. I think it's so great. And that band lasted a year and a half. And what was the next band?
Pohgoh.
You went straight from there to Pohgoh.
Yeah, I was still in that band. And actually, Keith was playing in Chester with Mike. And they had gone and recorded. And I guess the singer from Pohgoh found out about it. And she was also graduating from high school and was about to go to UF. She's a lawyer now. She wanted to focus on school.
Yeah.
And they were
like a sane person.
Yeah. They were about to go on tour over Christmas break. And they were actually going to go up to Athens. And then she quit. So they went on the tour anyway. They were like, well, fuck it. Let's just go on the trip anyway.
Right.
And supposedly the story goes that my boyfriend was in the back seat of the van, and Keith and Matt were up front. And Keith's like, I know who I want to be in the band. And Matt said, I know who I want to be in the band. And they're like, let's count to 3 and say it out loud. That's the story, supposedly.
And both of them said Susie.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So here I am. And I quit. I quit my other band.
Stitch.
Yes. We practiced at our drummer's house. And I had it arranged ahead of time. My future brother-in-law came with me and was waiting outside and, like, went upstairs with me to get my half stack. And, like, we sat on the living room floor and divided up the 7 inches and all of our money into 3s, and I left.
Wow. It sounds really formal.
I felt really bad. Yeah. And the first time we played... Are
you still friends with those folks?
Yeah. The funny thing is, the bass player, we had a full circle moment because... She, moved away, got married and divorced, and is now married to someone else who...
Did you say got married in a forest?
No, married and divorced.
Oh, married and divorced.
Yeah.
I was like, that seems significant.
Yeah, no, not married in a forest. But her boyfriend at the time, now husband, is super, super talented singer-songwriter and has a master's degree in music, and we put out their record.
What's that band called?
Love Axe.
Cool. Axe, A-C-T-S?
No, A-X-E.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah. Like.
Love Axe.
Yeah. It's a really great power pop record. So it was a cool moment for us to kind of circle back and...
reconnect.
Yeah.
And bury the hatchet.
Yeah. Bury the axe.
Bury the axe.
Yeah. The Love Axe. So yeah. And then...
So a couple good years with Pohgoh.
A year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah.
When did you...
really quick.
Yeah. When did you first start showing symptoms of the MS?
Probably like 1999, if I think about it.
How long had you been in Pohgoh at that point?
Pohgoh was done.
Oh, it was done?
Yeah. Pohgoh was only from like March, like January of 96 to like March of 97.
Uh-huh.
And then the band broke up, but we all hung out. And
you still played music?
I stopped playing.
How was that?
It sucked.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just going to school. I thought I was done. Like,
oh, man.
Music, it was really like I lost my calluses and let my nails grow. And
what were you in school for?
I have an English lit degree.
Do you have a particular specialization that you, not English lit or American or?
No.
Do you have a favorite?
Jane Austen.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I love Jane Austen.
Yeah.
It's so basic, I know. Like the white girl liking Jane Austen chick lit. It's like, but...
I mean, it's good stuff.
She's clever.
Yeah.
She's very clever. But
so you talked about your diagnosis, but I don't know what led up to it.
Well, I'll get to that.
Okay.
In September of 1998, one of our friends, pointing to Mike because
Mike is our engineer.
Our sound engineer.
Yeah.
There was, probably 15 or 20 of us still, that all hang out. One of our friends was going to do mission work in Europe, and he died in a plane crash.
Jesus Christ. What, tell me more about this.
Swiss Air Flight 111.
Uh-huh.
That was September 2nd, 1998.
Was it a malfunction?
It was an electrical fire. And he flew to JFK, and then they were going. It was Air Sweden, right?
Swiss Air.
Swiss Air. Yeah.
Swiss Air.
Yeah. And there was an electrical fire, and they crashed over Nova Scotia. So, we were all gutted. And
yeah, that's terrible.
I started writing songs because I just felt like I had some stuff to deal with. And right when...
That's pretty traumatic.
After Keith quit the band, I broke up with my boyfriend, started dating another guy, and then I got mono.
Oh, God.
So, and then 6 months later, no, like a year and a half later was when our friend died. So, I was also in a long distance relationship, and I was going to school full time, and I was working part time, and then our friend died in the plane crash. And I wrote these songs, and I recorded them in my bathroom on a boombox on tape, and I gave them to Keith. And
so on an acoustic?
Yeah. And I gave them to Keith, and then Keith gave them to Matt to listen to, and then I think we just felt like it was time.
Matt is another member of Pohgoh.
Pohgoh, yeah. Because at this point, Keith quit the band, and then we had a record recorded, and we put out a record the year after that, in '98, in the spring. So we finished a couple of songs that we had never recorded, and we put those on the record. And then in September, our friend died in the plane crash. So the band was done.
Right.
And then we started playing again, and we decided we wanted to record the songs, and the bass player from Pohgoh was not on board because he had already moved on to other stuff. So we got someone to play in the band who was actually my ex-boyfriend, who was in the back of the van when they were deciding who. So this is all very incestuous. Like, I think Mike and Matt and a few other people, like, I've dated a lot of
musician guys
in the scene.
Yeah.
No, I didn't date you guys. No. And Chris was in Chester. Yeah,
right.
Chris was a bass player in Chester.
What year? This is 99, you said?
98.
98.
So we recorded an EP, and we called it the Maccabees because the joke was I was the only Catholic, and there were 3 Protestants in the band, and the Maccabees book is in the New American, but not the King James version.
Right.
So, and it was before the UK Maccabees was doing anything. And we got a lot of sales from people who thought they were buying Maccabees stuff. A lot of iTunes sales.
Yeah.
So we put out
so you must have made like dozens of dollars.
Dozens of dollars, yeah. Dozens of pennies.
Right.
And we put that EP out, and then we put out a split with another band from Detroit. It was actually like a split EP.
Mm-hmm. What was that band?
Call It in the Air, who are now, one of the guys is in Dale Earnhardt Jr., or now Junior, I believe they're called.
Yeah.
And then we were going to sign to this label called Tree Records. And he was actually going to try out this thing with us where it was like a management sign where he would manage us and book all of our tours. Where
an Indie 360 deal.
Yeah. And
remember when that was going to save the record industry, by the way, the 360 deal?
Yeah.
God damn it. I hope it's buried in a shallow grave so I can dig it up and kill it again.
But he was expecting us to tour 6 months out of the year. That's how Keith and I landed on our wedding date, because we figured if we got married in August, we could tour afterwards. And then that band fell apart. And
that band was
the Maccabees.
The Maccabees.
And then, which is basically Pohgoh with another bass player.
Right.
And then after that, I started having symptoms, like, seriously.
Okay. Let's get into that. Yeah. But first, people know the words multiple sclerosis, but they don't understand that it's an autoimmune disorder where the myelin sheath, which is basically the insulating, like if you imagine an electrical cord, it's the plastic bit around the copper wire.
I'm so proud of you. This is perfect.
I don't like to come to interviews without doing the research.
That's how I explain it to people, though. That's the analogy I use.
Right, and your immune system wears away that myelin sheath, which causes what symptoms?
Scar tissue.
Right.
And it affects your central nervous system. So pretty much anything, any function in your body. Right. Speech, hearing, swallowing, walking, peeing, pooping, playing guitar, getting dressed, seeing. Did I say that already?
Yeah.
I mean, like pretty much anything it can affect.
So your first symptoms are what?
I had a numb spot in my back, and I thought it was like a pinched nerve because my bra was too tight. And I just kind of like...
If only.
Yeah, I know, right? I just kind of like brushed it off. And then I still do. I have a little floater in my eye. It kind of feels like... It looks like there's a hair in my eye, like in my field of vision.
Right.
And it just moves around with my eye. But
is that scar tissue?
No, I don't know what it is. I probably had optic neuritis, which is one of the very first telltale symptoms. And then it just resolved on its own. But the main symptom was 3 days before our wedding. So it was August of 2000. I was driving with my mom. We were going to get my wedding dress.
Were you driving?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And I remember very specifically, like, everything crossed over in my field of vision, so I couldn't, like, it was, what happened was my right eye started going in.
Right.
So I had double vision. Right.
Because people who don't drink as much as I used to don't know that everything that you see is in stereo. You have stereo depth perception of field, and when you get as drunk as I used to get, you get the sort of classic double vision because your eyes are no longer tracking. You've gotten drunk to the point that your eyes aren't tracking together, and now you're seeing double input. And so you had this as a result of your MS.
So we didn't know. I didn't know what it was. I thought it was stress.
That would make sense.
Right. And stress brings on initial symptoms of MS anyway. And I had double vision for about 3 months. It lasted through our wedding, through our
Holy
honeymoon.
shit. You had double vision for 3 months.
Yeah, I couldn't drive.
Through your wedding.
Yeah. Then if you see like
Jesus, Susie.
the first picture, like with my new last name, like I'm kind of looking at like this at the camera, like at the driver's license guy. It looks like I'm trying to be cute, but I couldn't focus on him. So I was like kind of like this.
Susie's given the guy who's taking her picture of the driver's license off a serious side eye.
Yeah, because I was like, I'm just trying to see him. So.
Right.
And my mom also has MS.
Oh.
And honestly,
At no point during the 3 months that you had double vision did your mom say, "Hey, I think I know what's wrong."
No, and I didn't either.
Yeah.
Honestly, because
she
never had double vision.
Oh, okay.
Her prognosis and path with MS has been completely different from mine. And it was really the last thing on our minds. And I went to see her neurologist, and we did an MRI, and we did what's called an evoked potential test, where they put all these electrodes on your brain and try and like track your eye movements. And he just did an MRI on my brain with and without contrast, not my brain stem or my spine. So, and he didn't do a spinal tap. So, but with the evoked potential and the MRI, he said, "You don't have MS." He said, you had a mini stroke.
Oh my God.
And my blood pressure was high, and I was overweight. So they put me on blood pressure medication, and I had started taking birth control before our wedding because we hadn't had sex yet. And I had to stop taking birth control because they said that was what was making my blood pressure high. And they were just like, that's what it was. And
okay.
And then about a year, I started having more symptoms, and I went to Weight Watchers so I could lose weight. And I lost about 25 pounds over the course of a year.
And that worked.
But and then I eventually lost 10 more and then 10 more. So I lost almost 60 pounds since we've been married. But from when the first meeting with that neurologist said you don't have MS,
right?
I wouldn't be able to play guitar. I couldn't make chords with my left hand, and I would just be playing and my pick would just fall out of my hands. And I felt like something was wrong, but I didn't know what. And it was so come and go, you know. It
was episodic.
Yeah. So I didn't want to know, and I didn't think it. And I also just didn't want to. That was it. I just didn't want to know.
Yeah.
But it was pretty clear that something was going on. In 2001, I worked in a call center. I was working in HR because the band, was done. I somehow got into HR. I've been a recruiter for 20 years. My sister was at a staffing agency, so she's like, get a job here. So I was working, and Keith was driving me to and from work. And,
because of the double vision.
Yeah. And it was a telemarketing call center for Marriott Vacation Club.
Yeah.
So the staff didn't come in until the afternoon, and it was just an empty call center, and it was September 11th, and they started broadcasting the radio. We were getting ready for orientation, and they were broadcasting the radio all through the call center, and I was going up to the room where orientation was going to be held, where I would be addressing everyone, and my left leg just stopped working. Like, I just started dragging it. Like, I couldn't, like, I was dragging it behind me. And I was just kind of like, what is going on? And they sent everybody home, obviously, because
September
shit
11th
got real. Yeah. And then I went to
So you call Keith. Keith comes and gets you. Do you say to him immediately, something's up with my leg?
No, he went home. I think I was driving. Was I driving then? I think it had gone, the double vision had gone away at that point. I was driving.
It's driving me a little bit crazy. I have to be honest with you. You have these moments where you're very symptomatic, and then it recedes, and the amount of hope that must have given you.
It's a motherfucker. Yeah.
It sounds really.
It's mean. It's mean.
It's fucking mean as hell.
It's real mean.
Yeah.
So
you get yourself home September 11th.
Yeah, and I realized I need to get a second opinion.
Yeah.
So I went to see another neurologist.
How was this conversation with Keith?
I think we were just kind of like, something's going on.
Yeah.
Let's figure it out.
Yeah.
We were very practical about it, and we're approaching it because, we're punk. We do things ourselves.
Yes.
Like, we put our records out. We book our tours. All right, let's figure out what's going on. Let's do this.
Right.
And we were very methodical about it. I went to see a neurologist. This neurologist did an MRI on my brain and my brainstem and my spine. And I had to go for a follow-up visit so he could go over the results, but I had to pick up my MRI on the way too.
Right.
And it was October 26th. And
after that same September.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys,
2001.
You went straight to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was a dress-up day for Halloween, and Keith was dressed in a habit, and a nun's habit. And the joke was, I'm not in a habit of wearing a costume for Halloween. So
that's really funny.
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a beard then?
What's that?
Gary have the big beard? Keith has
yeah.
Keith has an enormous beard and a shaved head.
It was a little more, it's a little closer to the face.
But really looked good with the nun's habit, I'm guessing.
Yeah, spot on.
Yeah.
So I went to get these films, and then I went to the neurologist. But I pulled into the parking lot, and I read my diagnosis on the sheet.
You're not supposed to do that.
I know. So I called Keith, and he had to go tell his boss in a nun's habit, my wife has some bad news. I need to go be with her.
What did it say?
Most likely multiple sclerosis.
Right.
Yeah. And I've done a lot of EMDR therapy to work on that moment.
Yeah.
Like reading the diagnosis, and that's why I'm okay talking to you about it right now, because for a while it was a really hard memory.
I've gotten some really terrible news a couple times in my life, and I have a physical memory of feeling like I was plummeting through the Earth's crust, falling, and people I've talked to report sort of a similar.
I don't remember feeling that. I just remember feeling like the only example I had was my mom.
Yeah. What was her experience like?
She was okay at that point. She was still working. She was totally mobile. She has more cognitive deficits than I do, which is funny because I'm on cold medicine right now, so I'm probably really spacey.
How did it manifest for her, this cognitive difficulties?
She was a dancer. She was a runner. Like my parents were like riding bikes, and my mom lost vision in one of her eyes, and she fell. And it took about 10 years for the diagnosis.
Oh, for God's sakes!
Yeah, because you have to do differential diagnosis because the symptoms mimic so many different diseases. And when I was diagnosed, it was because all the lesions were on my brainstem, not my brain, which is why I'm not walking now. Because the neurologist told me that he said that's the gateway to the rest of your body, so it's not good that your lesions are there. And
it's fucked up that I know that because of all the fighting classes I took as a young man, that if you want to incapacitate somebody, you take the knife edge of your hand and you hit them right where your lesions are because it shuts down.
Yeah.
I should maybe look into that.
It's like taking the plug out of the socket, you know? I mean, or just filling it with gum, you know? There's no message. Like, so he put me on a disease-modifying drug.
Which was what?
Avonex.
And does it reduce inflammation? What does that do? It's
supposed to. It's an interferon, and it's supposed to. It's an immunomodulating therapy. It's supposed to, but they still don't actually know how it works.
Yeah.
And
what were the side effects?
I felt like I had the flu. It was a weekly shot.
Yeah.
No, within 8 hours of the shot, like I would take Advil and Tylenol an hour before I had the shot, and then usually about 8 hours later I would be on the couch like shivering and sweating, you know, with a blanket on me. And I don't really think that drug did much because within a year I was using a cane. And I switched to, I got another neurologist, and I started taking another medication. And I've had the same neurologist since, the one that I brushed when he came in the door.
Oh, right, the cute one.
Yeah.
Still cute?
Yes, but very gay. Met his partner and their dog, and, you know, he's like family at this point, you know. Right. He's been treating me for so long. So, I don't know, I used a cane, and then it got to a point where I couldn't walk long distances without my legs kind of like just buckling out from under me. So, like if we went to a concert or somewhere like the mall, I would have to use a wheelchair.
Right.
And
places where you're going to be standing or having to walk for a long time, you'd have to count on the fact that you weren't going to be fully mobile. Yeah. Can we back up just a little bit to that moment of reading the presumed diagnosis before you spoke to the doctor? I know you said it was a really difficult moment, but I'm just trying to get an idea of what that moment was really like, though. Because at this point, you knew your mom had 10 years of symptoms without a diagnosis and then a diagnosis, and she'd had this cognitive difficulty. Did you spend a moment sort of mourning the loss of the possibility of not having this disease?
I think I was in shock.
Yeah.
And I was being very practical about it. And, you know, we didn't go back to work after the doctor appointment, neither of us.
Right.
And we went to Hyde Park, which is like this kind of walkable shopping district in South Tampa. And we parked on the second floor, and we walked up the stairs. And I remember walking down the stairs and thinking, am I going to be able to do this in 10 years?
Yeah.
You know, and no, I couldn't. And that's the one time I've seen Keith cry like maybe 3 or 4 times. And that was one. And then we went to my parents' house, and they held it together, but when I left.
Yeah.
Because they told me later on that, you know, they were really heartbroken because they knew what was coming. So, it was a bad day.
Yeah.
You know, you just take it as it comes.
Yeah.
You know, if one drug wasn't working, I switched to another one.
How many drugs do you think?
I've tried every one except like 2.
Uh-huh.
And the only drugs that put me in remission there was a chemotherapy drug.
Mm-hmm. Those are real pleasant.
It was awful.
Yeah. Which one was it?
It was called mitoxantrone or Novantrone, bright blue.
Yeah.
And it, like, I always got a kick out of the fact that my pee was green, like, after I would take the drug, because I would ask them to put, like, a towel over the IV so I couldn't actually see it going into my body.
Because it's so shockingly blue?
Yeah, and, like, the sense memory, like, if I smell burnt coffee, I get nauseous, because I think about being in the treatment room.
These drugs are essentially poison, right?
Yeah, yeah. And
You've
still
written
not
about
sure
that
how they work.
In the new Pohgoh record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the last one I had, I almost died from it. So,
yeah.
That one seems to be working.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had a major relapse since 2006. There are different kinds of MS.
Mm-hmm.
There's relapsing remitting, there's primary progressive, there's secondary progressive, and then there's relapsing progressive, I think.
Yeah.
And initially everyone's diagnosed with relapsing remitting, which means you have an episode, you have a flare up.
Uh-huh. You lose certain abilities.
Something happens.
Right.
Could be anything.
Dragging your
literally
leg.
anything.
Yeah.
Dragging my leg. I couldn't play guitar for a while.
Right.
I had Bell's palsy.
Yeah.
For a few months, and I didn't realize it until I was like swishing mouthwash, and my
Yeah.
And I was like, oh. Okay.
For people who don't know what Bell's palsy is, it's when the nerves in the side of your face, especially the ones that go around your jaw, become inflamed, and you get a kind of temporary rictus. I'm correct?
Mm-hmm. Paralysis.
Right,
yeah.
paralysis.
Yeah.
And people often notice that an eyelid is drooping, or they are swishing mouthwash, and half of it comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the main thing for me has always been weakness in my legs and really bad spasticity, to the point where I had fallen a few times. I tore the meniscus in both of my knees. I didn't need surgery, but
it's a really hard injury to rehab.
Yeah, and I transitioned to a walker at that point.
Right.
And that
this was before the scooter?
Oh, yeah. That was like 2005. Was that when we were?
I think when I met you, you were using a cane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was driving to St. Pete for work, which is like a 30-minute commute because you were just there last night. You know?
Right.
And I realized that I was having some trouble feeling the pedals, my car, and the gas and the brake.
Yeah.
And I was driving over a bridge every day, like in like rush hour traffic.
Yeah.
And so I told my neurologist, and they had someone come over and do an evaluation, an occupational therapist, to see if I could still drive.
Yeah.
And he had this box with 2 pedals on it and 2 lights, and he said when the light's green, you accelerate, and then when it turns red, brake. And there was a 6-second delay.
Right.
From when I saw so I could have essentially killed myself, like in a car accident.
Oh, there was a 6-second delay
from gas to brake
in your reaction time.
Yeah,
that's long enough to get into a lot of trouble.
My feet were so numb and are so numb still that
right.
I couldn't feel the pedals, and I was having a hard time moving them.
We're talking about all these things that have places where your body has failed you, and yet I've never known you to be a person who had even like the slightest bit of self-pity.
Oh, you haven't seen me on a bad day.
You haven't ever shown it when I'm around, and we spent some time together.
Yeah. I know that with a disability, people can be uncomfortable because, as I'm approaching someone, I'm not able-bodied, and so I tend to disarm with a smile because it helps,
Right, break the ice.
Yeah. So I just try and stay positive, but
you've had some low points.
Oh, yeah.
I could understand going through a lot of like, why the fuck did this happen to me?
Well, and things were quiet for a long time when I was doing the chemo drug, and then
the bright blue one.
Yeah, and I had to stop that. There's a dose limit because it can weaken the muscles of your heart, your ejection fraction. So I would have to get an echo or
EKG.
Yeah, every time before, and a pregnancy test because it killed the baby. The drug would kill the baby. But so I did that for about 4 years. We stretched it out for as long as we could, and then I tried a few other drugs over the years and continued to progress, not significantly so with new symptoms, just where my legs kept getting stiffer and stiffer and stiffer. And in 2015, I fell and broke a rib.
Where'd that happen?
In the living room, just right in here. Yeah.
You alone?
Yeah. Keith was at a music festival downtown. He had a record, he had a tent,
Sure, for the record store.
One of the first Gasparilla music festivals. And I stood up and I was trying to take a picture of my fucking cat because she was really cute. And I lost my balance and I fell and I hit the floor really hard. And you can see we have an ottoman in there.
Yes, I can see it.
With a wood top. And I slammed my back against it and it took my breath away.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that was a really bad fall. And I, whatever. Like Keith called me a few hours later because he would check in every once in a while. And I was like, oh, I fell, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Well, then I got up the next morning and I was making my coffee and I couldn't take a deep breath without feeling this like sharp pain. So I drove myself to the walk-in clinic and they did an x-ray. And
with your van. You got a van at this point, right?
Yeah. Oh, no, we got away from that for a second.
Yeah.
Hand controls. Yeah. So I've been driving with hand controls for 10 years. And I just had a Volkswagen Jetta because I was using a walker.
And the Jetta had hand controls?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they're universal.
Yes.
You can just put them on any vehicle. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
So I had the Jetta and then I got a scooter because the wheelchair was really tiring.
Yeah, I remember there was a wheelchair at one of the New World shows.
Yeah. So, I got the hand controls, and there was that span where I just, it was no new symptoms, but progressively with my continuing symptoms were getting progressively worse.
Yeah, even with the drugs.
Yeah. And I got the scooter, then we got the scooter lift for my husband's SUV. And then when that got too hard, because I would have to drive the scooter onto the lift and then walk to the driver's seat, get in the driver's seat, and then drive with the hand controls.
And now you're not using a cane because you have the scooter. So coming around the van is not easy.
No, because my legs are so stiff. That's why I fell and broke my rib. Because they'll go into a spasm for about 30 seconds when I stand up. And that same year, they were like, you need to use a scooter around the house because you fell and you need to heal your rib. You can't fall again. And then that same year, I also had an outpatient procedure done for something for my bladder because that's another symptom with MS. You have a neurogenic bladder where you think you have to pee like all the time. And then...
so you start ignoring that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you can't completely empty your bladder. So what they gave me, it's called an interstim, and it's a sacral nerve stimulator. So your tailbone nerve. They put this little battery-operated thing in your butt cheek, basically, with a line into your sacral nerve. And it skips the message from your brain to your bladder to tell your bladder that it's full. So I had that done.
Yes.
In July.
Outpatient procedure.
The same year that I fell.
Yeah.
And they were really worried about it moving because I was still healing.
In case you fell again.
Yeah, so they said, you need to use your scooter in the house. So that same year, I got a wheelchair ramp for the house.
Right. And was there an emotional impact for you being told you have to use a scooter even when you're at home?
Yes. It was bad.
Yeah.
I knew it was going to happen at some point.
That's actually a little worse, though, isn't it? Like, if you know this is coming and then they finally say, okay, now's the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the same year I started seeing a therapist.
Wait, you didn't start therapy until after you'd fallen?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had been on antidepressants.
Which ones?
Prozac at first.
Did that make you manic?
No, I don't remember. I don't really remember it doing anything. I told the neurologist I was tired, and he was like, "Oh, we'll put you on Prozac." And I was like,
it can make,
okay.
it can hit people really hard.
My mom was diagnosed with clinical depression, and there's some mental illness issues on my mom's side.
Yeah.
With like my great grandmother had some mental issues.
Yeah. What is it? Prying to ask about?
I don't really remember.
Okay.
Honestly, I mean, she passed away when I was 11.
Mm-hmm. She was your great grandma.
Yeah, she's my great grandmother. Yeah. Her husband died in a shipyard accident at the port of Tampa when they were very young.
Yeah.
They had been married long enough for my grandmother to be grown.
Right.
You know? So she moved in with them and lived with my grandmother and my grandfather until she passed away. So I'm guessing that probably had a really traumatic effect on her. And who knows, maybe she had MS. Maybe she had some cognitive problems.
It's possible.
You know, like I'm just now starting to put that together. So, you know.
So you start seeing a therapist because you're having... I heard the word maladaptive the other day, and it's been sort of ping-ponging around my head, but we have periods of time, I think, as people who struggle with depression of just... being okay with where we're at. Mm-hmm. And I could see having a lot of difficulty adjusting to the idea that now you're going to have a scooter at home. It
was really hard.
Yeah.
We eventually had to redo our bathroom the next year because it wasn't accessible. It was a big adjustment. I was very, very depressed.
Do you have health insurance through your job?
I do. Yeah. One thing I've been fortunate enough to have is insurance since my diagnosis. Even if we had to do COBRA, we would do it.
Right. Well, of course. It's still going to be cheaper than...
It's vital. I mean, like last year, I probably spent close to $10,000 with insurance.
No, I know.
For healthcare.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, going back to the depression stuff, like, I had more issues with anxiety.
Sure.
Just because I've settled into this, there's like this low hum of threat that is constantly like in my brain. Like, you don't know what's going to happen next. You could wake up and whatever, you know, like I never know what's going to happen. So I've kind of settled into this, like, I'm always on like a
hypervigilant,
like panic.
Yeah.
A low hum of panic.
Yeah. What helps with that? Does anything help with that?
Therapy has helped.
Yeah.
Writing helps.
Do you journal?
No, but writing songs helps. And I've been on medication, you know, weed helps. Not a lot, but weed helps more with like my symptoms.
Yeah. Tell me about
pain.
that. Well, wait a minute. Let's talk about the pain.
I have a lot of nerve pain.
Right. Like a burning?
It feels like my feet are sunburned, and it feels like there's fire ants crawling all over them.
And this is the myelin sheath just basically acting like bad electrical insulation.
Yeah.
And you got a burning.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's called neuropathic pain, I guess. Mm-hmm. I also have severe spasticity in my lower back all the way down to my toes.
That causes like sciatic pain?
No, just my, it's tonic spasms. So like when I stand up, my leg will straighten out. I have trouble bending my knees.
Right.
I also have foot drop, so I have trouble picking up both of my feet.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just basically a bad combination for walking. No.
Yeah.
It's disaster.
And so the weed sort of helps moderate.
The weed helps with the pain and the spasticity. It helps me function.
Mm-hmm.
I get a little twitchy without it. I started using it about 6 or 7 years ago.
It's been legal in Florida that whole time, right?
Sure.
Sure it has.
Yeah.
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 This message brought to you by the year 2024.
Yes.
Right.
But I would use like Valium or Xanax to treat like
anxiety,
panic attacks. Like I would have the kind of panic attack where I would feel like I didn't know who I was or where my surroundings were, and it was just like 5 seconds of just feeling like completely out of it.
Right.
And then just sheer panic.
Okay.
So, the therapy helps with that. I've been taking Celexa. I'm on like the max dose of Celexa.
Yeah.
I've been taking that for probably like 10 years.
And you somehow through all of this, though, you get. I follow you on social media, and you're always at the gym.
Yeah, I went to physical therapy on and off through the years, and then I started with a physical therapist in 2009. And physical therapists are a lot like regular therapists too. Like you have to like them.
Right.
I mean, you have to have a good rapport with them.
I tell everybody that no one's first therapy experience is good. Your first band wasn't that good.
Right.
You do.
Yeah.
You got to learn to be in the room.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably the same way with physical therapy.
Yeah. And I mean,
trust.
Yeah, exactly. I was never an athletic kid. Like I said, I was fat. So physical therapy was hard for me. And then I started making gains. And then I reached a plateau. And they're like, well, you have permanent nerve damage. There's really not much else we can do at this point.
And yet you were like, fuck that, I'm still going to keep going to the gym.
Well, my therapist said, there's a gym up the street that has a recumbent elliptical. You can do strength training and you can get cardio on the elliptical. I want you to join the gym. And so I joined the gym in 2012. And I've been going to a gym on and off since then pretty regularly, like 2 to 3 times a week.
And then at some point, Pohgoh gets back together. And, I mean, not to no small amount of acclaim. Like, you guys just went out on tour with The War on Women and Jawbreaker.
Yeah. That was serendipitous. I don't know if it was,
It may be because Pohgoh is a great band.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean,
I'll take that. Yeah.
Let's not diminish your achievements. You play guitar. I've seen you play guitar recently, and I don't like you were dropping your pick and having trouble forming bar chords at some point, but that doesn't seem to be an issue now.
It's still an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't wear earrings with backs. I can't do buttons.
Yeah.
I have fine motor skill problems, like dexterity issues.
Right.
When Keith and I started playing in the band Rec Center, my friend Mike was actually playing my parts for me, because I would write and I couldn't play the songs. So I would teach him how to play the songs, and then he would be like, oh, I have some songs too. And I was like, oh, let me plunk out some piano parts. So we started doing that.
Right.
And then I used to play a telly in Pohgoh and the Maccabees. I had a Strat and then a telly. And then with Rec Center, because of my fine motor skills, I thought maybe a smaller guitar would be better.
Right.
So I had a Daisy Rock, and then I had a Melody Maker. And I was doing a lot of open chords and just real simple stuff.
Yeah.
But with Pohgoh, I needed to fucking rock.
Right.
Like I needed some bottom end, and the guitars I had were great, but they just didn't have the weight that I felt like I needed, to play these songs. And I had to learn how to play them all over again because when I played before, I was standing up.
Right.
And then you have to approach it differently.
Sitting down.
And I would say even up through last year when we toured, I still wasn't 100% on my guitar playing. I'm now finally at a place where I feel confident.
How much are you practicing?
Every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Obviously not today.
Right. We're doing this.
Yeah. But I have to play for the muscle memory. Mm-hmm. Otherwise it'll go.
You think the unlearning happens faster because of the neurological stuff?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I also think that the repetition and songwriting and the wordplay and the time signatures and all of those elements to songwriting and being in a band has really, really helped my cognitive worth over the years.
Right.
Like I'm a little bit sharper than I would be if I wasn't playing music.
Right.
So it's really been a huge blessing. So
you're in therapy and you got some meds for anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Moods for anxiety. I think I just
had
named my
some
next band. Meds for anxiety and meds for the depression, and you're hitting the gym, and you're still playing.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like you're in a good place?
Yeah, I felt like I was, and then
until this interview. Let me talk all this crap up. Yeah.
No, I mean, until 2015 when I switched to the band. We started playing again in 2014, and then in 2015 was when I switched to the scooter full time.
Right.
And then we started writing songs, and all of this stuff just came out. All of these songs came out, and it was really more about momentum than anything.
Sure.
All of a sudden we had enough songs for a record.
Right.
And
why not make a record then?
Yeah, and we've been using the studio in town for 20 years, and we love it, and it's great. Mm-hmm. It's called Atomic Audio, and we thought, what if we went away to make a record? What if we just, bucket lists? Where would we go to make a record?
Free from distractions.
Yeah.
Because Keith is running, 5 businesses, basically?
Matt has a kid, works full-time. Brian has 2 kids, works full-time.
Right.
Keith has a record store, and I work.
And does promotions for shows. Yeah. And does these events. And
where were we?
And so you decided to make a record with someone else.
Yes. So we figured out that we could carve out, a good 7 days, a chunk of 7 days. So we had to there were 2 places that I had in mind. Actually, there were 3. But geographically, the one that made the most sense was Baltimore. Mm-hmm. And Jay Robbins is a huge influence on all of us. And the whole DC scene, post-hardcore scene was huge for us. And he has a recording studio, and he's an engineer. Mm-hmm. And we sent him the demos, and it was surprising to me how accessible he is. I
have a funny story about that. I'll tell you in a second.
But he was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And we drove up on a Sunday. It's like a 14-hour drive. Mm-hmm. We tracked everything on Monday. All the drums tracked on Monday.
Basics, yeah.
And we tracked everything in 5 days, and we drove home with rough mixes on Sunday. Yeah. On Saturday.
Yeah.
So
I followed you on social media. I was following you during that time, and it seemed like it was a really euphoric experience.
It was insane. It was so cool.
I mean, I've never seen you be downbeat on social media, but it was just the most upbeat and excited, I think. It was a good time.
I think it was kind of magical because it was also the same time as the solar eclipse that week. Right. And so we got to Baltimore Sunday night. We dropped all of our gear off. We went to our Airbnb. Mm-hmm. We went back, got all our sounds, got everything set up. And then we took a couple hours off because Jay promised his son that he would go watch the eclipse with him. Mm-hmm. So we tracked a few songs, and then we met some friends in downtown, and we watched the eclipse. And then we all went back. So it was the whole experience was peppered with this magic. You know?
Spiritually significant outside event. Yeah.
And it was fun. It was validating. We hit it off with him.
He's great.
He knew immediately what we were going for. And, he's an engineer. We hired him to record this for us.
Right.
But he seemed to be engaged, and he was making suggestions about arrangements, and we were just over the moon, excited to be working with him. And the last day, he was like, I think this song needs some texture. Would you mind if I played slide on this song? And we were like losing our shit. Like,
sure.
Of course you can. And then when we were done with the record with mixing and everything, he asked for producer credit too. So that was really cool for us. And,
right.
I mean, when we got the band back together, we started it with zero expectations. Oh, we have all these songs written. Let's go record them. Cool.
Right.
Let's see if we'll make this happen. Cool. Awesome. Okay, now we have this record. Should we try and tour? Yeah, let's try. Should we shop it? Yeah, let's shop it. No expectations. So
right.
all of these things have kind of like snowballed as a result. And it's been pretty cool.
Yeah.
So he got the mixes back to us, and he had to take like 6 weeks off, and then he got the mixes to us, and then we shopped the record for a few months, and we got really great feedback.
Right.
But because we're old and we can't really tour to support the record,
right,
no one could put it out, and that's totally understandable.
Yeah.
But we figured, I think that's been our logic from day one is, let's just see what happens.
Sure.
What's the worst that could happen?
Right.
So we wound up putting it out ourselves on New Granada, and then we found a label in Japan and a label in UK. And we only pressed 300 records.
Right.
And we sent some.
Same as the Stitch record.
Yeah. We sent some to Europe and some to Japan, and then that was it.
Right.
And then we toured in September. We played Pop Fest in August. We toured in September.
Right, that's when we hung out.
We played Fest.
Yeah.
Then I was in the hospital.
Wait. Okay. We were in the hospital?
Yeah, you didn't know about that?
No.
Oh, yeah. I almost died.
What?
Yeah. That was pretty serious.
What happened?
Well, the drug that I took, the most recent drug that I took.
Wait, I did see this. It lowered your platelet count?
Yes.
Really perilously low.
Yes, it was almost down to zero. It was down to, normal range is 140 to 440. I was down to 2,000. Oh, wait, no, 140,000 to 440,000. I was down to 2,000.
You kind of need platelets.
To clot your blood.
Right.
Yeah. Like I was in ICU. Like they were giving me stroke tests and stuff. Like say blueberry, make a face, like do this, stick your tongue out, and like it was.
Who's the president? Next question.
I got down to Carter, and then I was like, I'm too stressed out right now. I can't remember anything. So this drug the most recent drug that I did wipes out your immune system completely and then rebuilds it.
Hooray.
So it's a 2-year treatment.
Right.
You have 5 days the first year, and then you go back a year later for 3 more days. Yeah.
360-day recovery arc is pretty long.
Oh, it was a 2-year recovery. I mean,
Sounds brutal.
I took 3 months off after each treatment.
Oh my God.
A month.
Yeah.
To recover.
So you do your second treatment, and then
2017, and then 2018.
Your platelet count crashes.
Yeah. And I was also diagnosed with a thyroid condition as a result of the drug. So I have Hashimoto's.
Yes.
I have MS. I have high blood pressure because that's just genetic. And just now just a
little fun.
Yeah, just a little flavor.
Yeah.
And I also have ITP, which is I can't think of it right now. It's a platelet disorder, basically. Right. And what happens is it's another autoimmune disease where your body attacks the platelets. And then I got a blood clot in my armpit. Oh, gosh. The axillary vein.
How did that make itself known? Pain?
Yeah, and you can still see it. My arm is still my right arm is still a little more swollen than my right, but it was.
I thought that was just because you were cut now.
No. My arm was really fat and red. And I couldn't raise my hand, like it hurt to raise my hand. Yeah. And they sent me for a stat ultrasound, and it was completely occlusive.
Occlusive means?
Closed off.
Okay.
Yeah. And they gave me a shit ton of blood thinners.
Really? The platelet patient?
Right? I know. The irony.
Yeah.
Well, they were giving me Emplate to stimulate my platelets, and then they were giving me Eliquis.
That may have been why you had the clot, because they're jump-starting your...
No, my platelets weren't that high.
Oh.
It was just because I used my upper body a lot to move.
Sure.
And I guess I had created some friction or something, and some of the clot is stuck on the valve too. There's like a valve in my armpit, I guess.
From the pick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was on blood thinners. I just stopped them right before the Jawbreaker tour, so like 3 weeks ago.
Right. So the record comes out. Mm-hmm. Yeah. After all of this.
The record came out when we went on tour, and then I was in the hospital.
Okay. I see. Right. Yeah. Of course.
And then we were invited to go on tour with Mineral. Mm-hmm. And then we were invited to go on tour with Jawbreaker. So all of this has happened in the last, since September of last year. So,
and this Japanese label is bringing you guys over, and you're going to be there for a week?
3 days.
3 days.
Yeah.
Man, I'm a little jealous. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm nervous.
Yeah.
I'm nervous about flying.
Well, and you have this constant low-level hum.
Yes, yeah.
Of anxiety.
I'm worried about bathrooms.
Yeah.
I'm worried about flying. I'm worried about my legs, spasticity. I'm going to have to get on some medication, like a protocol, because I can't. Weed over there is a big no-no. So, no, not even remotely going to attempt it, because it's like jail time and shit like that.
Yeah, a la Paul McCartney.
Yeah, exactly.
Some hemp I brought for smoking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I feel like
hadn't thought about that.
Place. Yeah. So, I've realized with my therapist, there's this thing called functional depression.
Yes.
You know, where you feel shitty all the time.
Yeah.
But you just deal with it.
Yeah.
And you pick yourself up and you go about your day. And that's where I'm at right now. You know.
Can I ask you a really weird question?
Yeah.
Do you remember your dreams usually?
Sometimes. Not since I've been smoking weed.
Yeah.
I'm very heavily medicated to fall asleep because I have tonic spasms that are so bad. It's almost like I take epileptic medications.
Right.
That help because it's almost like a seizure-ish type of movement, uncontrollable. Sometimes I remember my dreams.
I have a friend who was he's paraplegic, and he was being tormented by dreams where he wasn't, where he was walking with.
Well, I dream that I'm roller skating.
Yeah. And
I usually dream that I'm like strapped into roller skates.
Right.
And I can't control it.
Sounds kind of unpleasant.
Yeah. Or everybody else is walking and I'm trying to like get around on roller skates. Or the other dream is, these are the recurring MS dreams.
Yeah. That
I get up and I'm like walking around. Right. And everybody's like, what's going on? What happened? This is amazing. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I'm just, this is just me, you know? And then I've actually had a couple times where I've woken up and it's felt so real that I've really disappointed, you know?
Yeah.
And realized that it's not actually the case. Yeah. But lately, no, I'm sleeping like a
needle off the record sleep.
Like,
yeah. I'm a big fan of that kind of sleep these days.
Hard sleep.
Yeah. I call it needle off the record sleep. Just like, doop, out, and then needle down again. Hey, it's daylight, you know?
Pretty much, yeah.
I've discovered that I can do that if I just don't drink any coffee after a certain hour, but yeah. Well, I end these interviews with a series of questions. Okay. And they're usually pretty light compared to the interviews that I've done. They've recently changed because the second question forever has been, what is the most frightened you've ever been? But as I've had more female guests, I came to realize in the middle of one of these interviews that for a woman that answer can be really different than for a man, and it can often trigger memories of trauma. You know, I don't want to get into details of that, but change the question. So we'll get to that in a second. But if you're good, we can start. Yeah. Okay, first question. What is your favorite memory of a meal that you've had?
Oh, sauce. Every Sunday. My mom would put a pot of sauce on when we got home from Mass.
Red sauce?
Pasta sauce, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, meat sauce.
Yeah.
I mean, the memory of the onions and the garlic, sauteing the smell.
Yeah, the sweating the aromatics, as the professionals call it.
When she'd make meatballs, sometimes she would flatten one out and like make a little patty for me and my sister to eat, so it would have like all of the breadcrumbs and the seasonings and everything in it, and it was like this really delicious.
Did she cook her meatballs in the oven and then put them in the sauce, or were they served separate? Or
no, they were. I think she browned them and then put them in the sauce.
In a skillet.
Yeah.
And was it like a heavy rosemary, like bolognese, or
no rosemary?
No rosemary.
It's a really simple. It's a really simple recipe. It's crushed tomatoes, tomato paste, onions and garlic, olive oil, salt, pepper, ground beef. Cover the top with basil, the pot, Man,
it sounds extraordinary.
You let it simmer for like 4 or 5 hours until the wooden spoon stands up in the pot.
Oh,
then
wow.
It's ready.
That's thick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was she pretty hardcore about the al dente pasta too?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Every Italian I've ever met. It's like,
Sicilian.
You cook your pasta to mush and I won't eat it.
No.
Full stop.
And Keith's like, what are you talking about? This is fine. I'm like, no. It's awful. Yeah.
Civilians, they don't get it, man. Yeah. The whole Italian pasta laws are it's intense.
Yeah.
All right. So the new second question is, tell me about a time when you were braver than you ever thought you could be.
Braver?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Jesus.
Excuse me.
The first solo I ever sang, I was 11.
Oh, my goodness.
And it was...
Recital?
It was a chorus. It was a Christmas concert. And
what was the song?
It was the Christmas song, Nat King Cole.
Yeah.
And I sang the bridge. It was like my solo. They know that Santa's on his way. That. And we wore these really ugly, like vinyl mustard yellow polyester vests that were ill-fitting and Christmas hats. And my parents took a picture of me, and I'm in the middle on the second riser in the middle of everyone, and you can see my face because I'm just white as a ghost.
Because you knew your solo was coming.
Terrified. Like I thought I was going to throw up. I almost threw up.
Did you nail it?
Yes.
And afterwards, there was probably this huge endorphin rush.
Yeah.
Probably that planted the seed for everything that came after, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't sing in public.
I love singing.
I sing to my dogs. I sing to my sweet daughter. I sing in the shower. But the minute there's more than 4 people in the room, I don't sing.
Not me.
Tell me about a thing that you've lost that you regret the most.
A thing that I've lost? Jeez. That I regret?
Just that you regret losing.
Well, I took for granted being able-bodied.
Yeah.
You don't realize how much you take it for granted, and it's so cliche. You don't know what you got till it's gone, but it's really true.
No, I know. So one of my future interviews, I'm going to finally work out a way to frame this and talk to another guy like me. There's a thing that depressed men do where we fucking hurt ourselves. We're careless with our well-being. Like I ride mountain bikes, and I ride too fast, and I hurt myself. And the next day, I have the same thought every time as I'm going over the handlebars, which is, I wasn't grateful enough for not being hurt because this is going to be bad. And
it's happening in slow motion, but it's also really fast at the same time. Yeah.
But then the next day, I can't like button my jeans, or I can't stand up, and I think, man, I just wasn't grateful enough about being able to do these simple things.
Yeah, I mean, the irony now is that I'm more fit than I ever was, but I can't walk.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was not an athletic child. I never did any team sports. I was lazy. Keith said he remembers seeing me run once. And that was when we were on tour and we were running across the street. We were in D.C. and the light changed.
Right.
And he said I did like the hands out to my side, like
right.
prissy little girl
run.
Yeah, which I know is not politically correct to say anymore.
Well,
anyway.
Yeah. It's good to remember that though, for contrast to like some of the amazing athletes that we see now who are women. Yeah.
So I think I took my physicality for granted. You know.
And you miss it.
I miss it. I don't remember how I used to move.
Right.
Like I'll watch a TV show and I'll see someone sitting in a chair and think, how are they going to get up? There's nothing to hold on to when they walk across the room.
Yeah.
You know? Or I'll watch a reality show or these people on a romantic date and they're out on a lake on a boat and I'm like, what is she going to do when she has to pee? Right. Like I frame everything around.
That's an actual valid question for anybody in a boat. Yeah.
But I just frame everything around my limitations and the scope of what I feel like the scope has gotten smaller, but I've also spread my wings within that scope. You're
doing amazing things.
Thank you. I feel I'm just really tenacious.
Yeah.
You know? Because I have to work harder to do things. And some people call that being, annoying or stubborn, but I prefer tenacious.
All things considered, I think it's a virtue, not a vice.
Yeah. So, I mean, life is hard. We make it work. Yeah. That's the end, pretty much. We adjust. We've made concessions. We don't have kids. We have a wheelchair ramp. I have a ramp van. Whatever. It's what it is. It is what it is. So here we are.
Yeah. What's your favorite place to gig?
I really liked the George Theater a lot.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah,
it's a good spot.
The sound was amazing.
Oh, the sound there is incredible. And everyone who works there has to go under the nose of a guy named Colm O'Reilly, who is this Irish guy who was front of house engineer for John Prine and Throwing Muses and Jewel and Christy Moore, the Irish. That was his first big gig when he was like 20. He's Colum's standards are very high. He's a very gentle, sweet man. I've only seen him really angry one time. But, the staff at the Georgia Theater are just unbelievable.
The best sounding, that was definitely the best sounding. I miss New World for reasons other than, it was our second home.
Right.
We spent a lot of time there. And that's pretty much the only place we played for about 10 or 15 years. Sometimes we play at Crowbar. Sometimes we play in St. Pete.
Yeah.
But by and large, we played at New World,
5/8 has always done well in Tampa, and this is one of my favorite places in the world to play, and New World was the place for us. So.
Yeah, the fact that I'm sitting here talking to you is insane, because when I was a kid and seeing 5/8 Stone Lounge, I thought Mike was this intimidating, crazy guy, and I was just totally fascinated by him. And the energy that you guys put forth and that you still put in, it's 100% heart all the time.
Yeah.
And it's really admirable.
It's good and bad.
The fact that we're sitting here is pretty cool.
Well, it's weird. I feel the same way, though. So you've always been someone who stuck out, was striking as someone some people just have this aura of authenticity and engagement, and no one walks past Susie Ulrey, I didn't see her.
Oh yeah, well, I'm kind of hard to miss.
Yeah. Well, you've always been that way, though. So yeah. Visa and income considerations aside, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live?
I'm an Anglophile. I would love to live in London, and actually, we've talked about living in Athens, moving to Athens.
I like Athens a lot.
I like Athens too.
I've lived there a long time.
We love to vacation there, and we've actually looked at houses and talked about it, but we'll never do it. We're just too rooted in Tampa.
Tampa's a neat place. We were talking earlier about how I thought about moving here at one point.
Yeah.
And then there was a year where the only city on cops was Tampa.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. It was
lightning capital, death metal capital, and stripper capital of the world. just 3 for 3 right out the gate.
Right.
You know?
Tell me about a time that you received an act of kindness from a stranger.
Oh, God. 2001 or 2. I can't remember which year. I had just been diagnosed. No, it was 2002 because we were living here. And I got into a car accident on the way to work on I-4. Mm-hmm. There was no one else involved. It was just me.
Right. Was it related to your neuropathy?
No. The windshield, like the heat, the
defroster.
That I put on the back of the, you throw it back in the back and you put it up to keep your car from getting hot. I can't remember what it's called right now, but it created
not the defroster, the barrier, the sun barrier. Yeah.
The foil.
Yes.
Yeah. So it created a reflection on
the back. So you got in the car
window.
and you forgot to take it down?
Well, no, it created it was in the back behind the 2 seats, and it created a reflection on the rear window, and I looked over my right to merge, and I thought there was someone there, but it was actually just the visor.
Right.
So I swerved I overcorrected, and I actually spun 180 degrees.
360 would be all the way around. 180 would be halfway around.
Halfway around. So I was
facing the wrong way.
I was in the shoulder, but facing oncoming traffic.
Did you hit the barrier or anything?
There was no barrier, and my car was actually up like this.
Sort of off the road?
I was up on the right side, so the driver's side was in the air.
Oh, your car was resting on the door handles on the left side.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds exciting. What car was this? Was the Jetta?
It was the Jetta, yeah. And there was someone. Well, first of all, people immediately pulled over and set my car on end.
On 4 wheels. Yeah.
And then I got out of the car and I was kind of leaning against it because I had a cane then, and I couldn't walk very well. And someone was moving and had a U-Haul truck, and they pulled over and they opened the back of the truck and they got a chair out so I could sit down. And they sat with me.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was a really cool moment, and I felt very safe and protected, And Keith,
I mean, holy shit! How? What an opportunity! You're driving down the road and you think that person needs a chair.
I know, it was totally random.
Yeah.
And Keith and I we worked right next to each other, but I had to be at work at 8 and he had to be at work at 8:30, so he was right behind me.
Oh my God.
And
watching your wife spin around in a car?
No, he didn't see the accident.
Oh, thank God.
But he got the call.
Right. Oh, he was right behind you.
Leaving
the house, yeah.
He was like 10 minutes behind me. And he would have gone the same way, so the traffic, he couldn't even get on the interstate,
He's probably on, muttering to himself, some idiot's got in an accident. Yeah.
And I think cell phones were obviously around then, but it was 2002. So.
Right. But you guys were creatives, musician types who had gotten the sort of jobs that we all get to keep from starving. So the extravagance of a $150 a month cell phone bill for me took a long time to take root.
We got pretty settled into office jobs pretty quick. I mean, I think when we were each only making total household income, I think it was $40,000 a year, but we had insurance and we had benefits. But I had that accident and that person pulled over, and I think that's total stranger,
Yeah.
I mean, what compelled them to pull over and do that for me? I don't know. So they took me to the ER. I was fine. My car was totaled. No one else was involved. There were no injuries. Nothing happened. But that kindness was pretty random and extraordinary.
And amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the last question. Okay. What is your perfect musical instrument, and do you own it? I think I know the answer to this question.
Yes, I have it already.
Your red guitar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My telly.
What year? Excuse me. What year is that telly?
72.
Oh, it's a 72. I didn't realize it was vintage.
Yeah, it's not all original. It's been rebuilt.
Right.
But it took me a while to grow into it and get comfortable with playing a telly again, but I love it.
Is it deluxe or is it got single coils?
It's a deluxe.
Yeah, it's got the humbuckers.
Mm-hmm. I've never been so enamored with an inanimate object as much as I love that guitar. You know, like it's perfect.
I caught myself the other night at our first night of this run of dates, sitting in a bench in a restaurant or in a bar. It was a bar. I wouldn't eat anything in that bar. There's a bar, but there was a place where I could sit and put my feet up and just stare at my drum set.
Yeah.
I'm almost embarrassed. I took a couple of pictures of it, and I thought, what am I doing?
That's amazing.
I mean, I'm going to drum set for the rest of my life, but felt the need at that point to just sort of give it that high and take some pictures. But I get the being enamored of him.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Well, this has been...
Yeah, like where did we start and how did we get here? I don't know.
It's been a journey. Mm-hmm. But I'm really grateful that you were able to do this.
I feel like I just babbled at you for a couple hours.
But that's kind of how podcasts work.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Susie.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Okay, that's our interview with Susie Ulrey. She inspires me so much. She's such a superhero. I remember a couple of years ago, I was hanging out at New World Brewery in Ybor City in Tampa waiting to play, and she was there, and I was sort of kvetching about not making it to the gym and not feeling like riding the mountain bike and that kind of thing, and she said, hey, do me a favor. Do it for me, because I can't. And God, it inspired me so much. For the next year, my battle cry was do it for Susie. I would go to the gym and get on the bike. I would be sitting on the couch thinking, I don't feel like doing this today. And I'd think, okay, do it for Susie. And I was one of the best years of my life as far as fitness is concerned. So if you're thinking about whether or not you should take care of yourself, do it for Susie. So anyway, thanks for listening. Remember to go to the Patreon page if you want to sign up for a monthly commitment to support the podcast, www.patreon.com/crashandride. You can sign up to get a monthly can of coffee of the Crash and Ride Espresso mailed to you there. Pretty soon there's going to be a web store where you can buy the coffee outright. I'm going to get some t-shirts made that say Loud Guitarists Save Lives on the front and Listen to the Crash and Ride podcast on the back. I feel like the podcast is at a really interesting place right now. It's starting to grow to the point where I'm hearing from people I don't know personally, which is exciting. If you have questions or suggestions for the show, crashandride@protonmail.com is our email. That email is encrypted and it's private, and nobody reads that but me, and I'll protect your anonymity at all costs. If there's something you want to tell me or something you want us to address on the show, that's a great way to reach me. Thanks again for your support. Thanks for sharing links on social media to the podcast. It's growing really fast. I feel like great things are happening. I feel like we're helping people. Remember, take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself. Ask for help if you need it. Go see live music, and never forget that loud guitars save lives.